All righty then. So we're down to SmackDown from Friday night, September 30th, the last day of the month. They were in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. Do you know that's the first time that I ever went to Canada? I went to Winnipeg.
The very first time you went to Canada?
The very first time, because I'm trying to think what year it was. Crockett had done 2 shows in Canada around Ontario in 1987, and I was off for those shows because I had been suspended for burning Ronnie Garvin with the fireball, and I was in Hawaii. And that's where they took Crockett's plane, and the APU unit that controlled the heating and air burned out, and the cabin filled up with smoke, and everybody was panicking. And if I'd have been on that flight, I'd never got on another airplane. But I wasn't there. So this was, I think it was like 1988-ish. It was Crockett was running Winnipeg for some reason, and he was using Tony Condello as the local promoter. And Tony Condello is famous in some circles for the death tours of the northern Canada provinces where they go over the roads that are, like frozen lakes, and they can only access this part of the world like 3 or 4 months out of the year, whatever. But he was based out of Winnipeg, and he'd been around the wrestling business for a long time, had wrestled, had helped promote for Vern and the AWA. And they sent me up there by myself, Crockett's office did, to do advanced publicity because it's the first time we'd been in the market. And remember, I guess, Crockett had stopped running Toronto. He had the talent trade deal with the Tunnies, but he had stopped that a couple of years before we went to work for him. And so anyway, point is, I'd never been to Canada. So they send me up there. I'm going to get there, if the show was on Saturday night, I got in on like Thursday night. And Tony Condello is going to take me all around Friday. We did radio. I think we did a newspaper interview. We might have stopped at a children's hospital. What a typical wrestling advanced publicity stuff, right? But I asked, well, what hotel should I stay at? And Condello had said on the phone, I talked to him before I went up there, the such and such hotels where all the boys stay. So I fly up there, I get a car, I get to the fucking thing, I check in, and I see what I think is like a sports bar in the parking lot next door. I think, well, at least I'll have something to eat. I go over there. It's a fucking strip club. It was a strip club. I'd never been to Canada, much less a Canadian strip club. But it looked like, from the outside, like a normal, like I said, sports bar or whatever. But I walk in the front of it, and there's, naked women up on a stage. And I'm thinking, well, shit, now, does anybody know me in Winnipeg? Should I be here? Am I going to get beat up by some drunks? Fuck it. I just went back to the hotel and got a pizza. I wasn't opposed to the titties. I was opposed to who might know me and I might have heat with that was in the audience. But later on at the show, I found out that shouldn't have been a concern because apparently nobody knew who the fuck we were up there at that point. Anyway, so finally we do all the publicity, on the day before the show and everything. And then Condello tells me, he said, well, there's a kid here in high school that wants to do an interview with you for his school paper. And I said, tell him to call me. Give him the hotel number. Tell him to call my room. Because I'm not going to go, honestly, after this long day and this trip, meet with some high school kid and sit down and do a big interview for the school paper, right? But I did it over the phone. And he was a nice young man. And I was nice to him. And I didn't think anything more about it. And I found out, was it 5 or 6 years later, when I ran into the kid again, guess who the kid was that interviewed me over the phone for his high school newspaper?
Mauro Ranallo?
No, a kid named Chris Irvine.
Get out of here, really? I never heard that.
Yes, he told me when I brought them down to Knoxville, him and Lance, to talk to him about coming into Smoky Mountain Wrestling. He said, we've spoken before. When's that? I interviewed you for my high school newspaper when you were in a hotel in Winnipeg. And since that I've only been in a hotel in Winnipeg at that point in my life once. I knew it was him.
Did he spend the whole interview telling you how smart he is?
No, amazingly enough, it was actually a normal interview with a normal high school student, just whatever happened to him after that. But